Greetings, grasshoppers, and welcome to the epic, the quest for epic engagement. Got the show name wrong. Yeah, it's been a day, but you're here. Your goggles are fastened. Your cape is tightly around your neck, and we're going to take a little bit of an adventure with my friend Kerry today. My friend Kerry is a yoga instructor down in Oklahoma, is a vet, owns a nonprofit, doing some business, and he's got some words of self-care for us today and a little bit of knowledge that I hope you will take to heart, because this is obviously a man worth listening to. Welcome, Kerry. Tell us all about yourself.
Thank you so much. Well, I'll try to keep that part brief. I will say this. I'll give you a little bio from my past. Air Force veteran, Gulf War veteran, and I was medically discharged in '99 and got out and and I was actually stationed in Omaha. Really enjoyed Offutt up there. It's amazing, amazing place. Offutt still has my heart in so many levels, and really loved it. My career was really kind of went full circle. I started off there at the reconnaissance, and then I went out to Korea, and then I ended up in England. And so in Korea, we've got all this politics going on, but I did the security briefing for the president. So for Clinton, I gave him his security briefing each and every day that I worked. So that was, I would say, challenging at some point, because you're taking all this information, you're trying to compile it down for him so he can kind of understand what's going on. But that was it's a really neat career. But I got really sick, had a lot of health issues, and I was medically discharged and got out and did a variety of different things. I did restaurant management. I was a franchisee. I did cybersecurity, worked for the USDA, Federal Reserve, some other organizations. And just over 10 years ago, January, 10 years ago, my wife comes to me and she goes, "I didn't sign up for this. You're not the man that I married. You're not the man that you used to be." And I realized that I was like a shell of a man. I was stressed. I was anxious. I was not doing well mentally, physically, or spiritually. I say I was bankrupt on all those levels. And I thought she wanted a divorce. That's what I thought this conversation was headed. And she goes, "Hey, I want you to retire, and I want you to focus on your health and well-being." I'm like, okay. I said, "Well, I'm doing cybersecurity for the USDA. I'm going to walk in and turn in my resignation, and two big old guys with guns are going to come over to my desk and grab my card reader and tell me to walk out the door. So I'll be home in like 45 minutes. And that's literally what happened. I went in, typed up my resignation. I just sat there because I knew it was coming. Two big old guys with guns come over, grab my card reader, walk me out the door, right? And I called the VA and I said, "Look, I'm not doing well. I'm not doing well mentally. I'm doing horribly physically and spiritually as well." I said, "I can't work. My wife just asked me to resign." And they sent me out to New Jersey for Gulf War testing. So I was out there for like a whole week. They do all these crazy tests, right? All kinds of stuff that you'd probably see like in clinical trials. It's basically, that's what they were doing for the Gulf War veterans. And they recommended three things. And so one was Tai Chi. I was familiar with it. I'd never done it. Yoga, familiar with, never done it. And biofeedback. And at the time, it sounded scary because I'm like, biohazard is what my mind went to. Like, biohazard, like, what are you doing? What kind of chemicals are you going to put in my body? You're like, what's this biofeedback thing, right? It sounded odd. And I landed in Kansas City and they had me an appointment immediately. It was the craziest thing with this Dr. Black guy, kind of a hippie guy. And I go out to the VA and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to set you down in this chair and we're going to measure your oxygen and your pulse and your heart rate and all these different things. I just want you to relax and I want you to breathe," and kind of went through this whole modality of, biofeedback. And it was the first time I left the VA hospital more calm and more relaxed than I walked in. I was like, well, this is odd. All I did was breathe. I listened to some good music with like some birds and some rivers and stuff like that, but it made no sense to me. Not because if you talk to most veterans, when they leave the VA hospital, they're enraged and they're more frustrated than when they were when they came in, right? And that was the typical journey for me. And so I went home and I studied biofeedback. I'm like, oh, this is mindfulness meditation, Eastern version, right? This is the Western version of, hey, we're going to hook all these monitors up, right? So I dove into mindfulness and meditation 100%. I got up every morning and I set an intention and I engaged in mindfulness and meditation. And then I did it again at noon. And then I did it again in the evening. And if there was any trigger going on in my life at all, I'd stop and I would just breathe and I would go back to my intention, right? Did this for about 6 months, and then I stepped into a yoga studio. And I'm doing this mindfulness meditation, intentional thing, this process, what I thought you were supposed to do at a yoga studio, not realizing later that everybody's there just to get a good workout, right? They're there for the fitness part. I'm here for this whole spiritual part. And I walk out like, oh my gosh, like the choir of heaven singing and all these things are just going on. And I just like have this whole like epiphany of like, I felt free for the first time in a long, long time. So I dove into it 100%, even more. And then I went and I got my 200-hour yoga teacher training. And then I did my 300-hour in India. And I have just been working on myself this whole entire time. And really this yoga journey and path is I give what has worked for me. And it's easy for me to give that to other people. So when you come into my studio, whether it's our virtually, right, I offer these sessions virtually as well, it's really, I'm just giving it to myself of what I would say to myself, the poses that I would do, everything for myself. But what I realize, it's benefited hundreds and hundreds of people, and especially veterans and essential personnel, and it's transformed their life. When I do these retreats, I've got veterans that come up to me and 1 to 3 every single time. You saved my life. I was going to commit suicide, or somebody got their mother back, or their daughter, or their whatever it may be.
Sorry. Oh boy. Holy moly! You just met my tiny protector. That was Ranger. Please, I did not mean for that to interrupt. Please go.
So I realize like what I'm doing is working, right? And so how can I give this to other people in the community, both in person, but how can I begin to lead other people in the community to these modalities where they can use their gifts and talents to help transform and hopefully save lives as well, and to give hope to society. So that's there's a lot more to the story, but that's the big synopsis of how I got where I'm at today.
I mean, I love that story. I love that story because this is you're giving people the gift of who you are, and how you saved your own life. At the time when you were a shell.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people feel that way, but they don't really maybe know where to turn.
Here's the craziest thing. The most simplest concept of our life is the most impactful. And it starts with your breath. So my suggestion and from clinical trials, if you have trauma, drama, you have all these things from your past, PTSD maybe, the objective is a diaphragmatic breath, so a belly breath. Your chest is static. You're going to breathe through your belly. You're going to inhale for 8 seconds. You're going to pause and hold for 4. You'll exhale for 8 seconds and pause and hold for 4. Now, this is what I call self-care. So every single morning, I get up and I breathe. It's the first thing. I'm laying in bed and I'm breathing. So this is my form of self-care. This is my form of what I call mindfulness meditation, but I label it as self-care because this is really vital. So the breath is the first step. That's our key. Then say a body scan or a general observation that I check in with myself today. Okay. And so from that general observation is where I come into my intention. So let's use something that's common with a lot of people. We've got a lot of guilt and shame from our past, right? Things that we've done personally and professionally, right? We've probably hurt a lot of people and we've probably hurt ourselves even more, right? So let's just say forgiveness. So I wake up in the morning, I'm doing my breathing. Inhale for 8, pause and hold for 4, exhale for 8, pause and hold for 4. Today I've got a lot of guilt and a lot of shame. I'm going to offer myself forgiveness. I begin to have that interaction and that conversation with myself. Was what does forgiveness feel like? What does it sound like? And what does it look like? So I begin to have this conversation first thing in the morning. I'm not doing anything else yet. I'm still laying in bed. And so then I begin to build my awareness of what I feel, like, clothing on the skin, right? The temperature of the room. If I always sleep with the window open, so is it kind of warm or cool? What's going on there? Maybe the sheets, pillows, whatever it is, anything and everything touching the skin. I build my awareness. Then I begin to build my awareness of what that intention feels like for me. So, what does forgiveness feel like for you? Right? When you're finally free, you're not carrying the weight, the burdens. You don't have all these barriers built up. You've offered yourself and others forgiveness. How does that feel? And then the next step is what you hear. So I live in rural Oklahoma, so I'm going to hear some cows and some coyotes and some hawks and all these different wildlife that's going on out there, right? Because I have my window open. And then but then I begin to dive into what does forgiveness sound like? That I remind myself that I'm forgiven, right? And so all of a sudden what happens is how you begin to articulate and how you begin to speak is different. The way that you interact with yourself and others because you're offering forgiveness. And then it's what I see. So once again, I'm in a space where the sunrises and sunsets are unbelievably just magical, right? So I'm usually seeing the sunrise and Venus off into the distance, right? And just these different colors, kind of like the chakra right here. You've got some mustard yellows and some oranges and some reds and some different colors, and the green coming out right now because spring is upon us, right? So you see all this stuff in the blues from the sky and the gray. But if my intention today is forgiveness, what does that look like for me? So this is the cycle that I'm going through first thing in the morning before I even get up. Okay. I'm breathing in, inhale for 8, pause and hold for 4, exhale for 8, pause and hold for 4. A general observation. Every day it's a little different, but I'm just going to use that common denominator of forgiveness because it's something we can all relate to. Okay. Maybe it's courage, right? We need courage to overcome and face our fears because we're living in the fear of failure, fear of being hurt, fear of hurting others, fear, right? We're in this whole state of fear right now, right? On so many levels, right? Everything, end of the world, conspiracy theories, the list goes on and on. We're all in all these fears, but what happens if we became empowered and when we empowered ourselves and we encouraged ourselves? So let me get back. I get sidetracked, but here's the thing is if I'm offering myself forgiveness, what does forgiveness feel like? What does it sound like? And what does it look like? I immerse myself in this practice. Now, I leave my house and I come to the yoga studio, right? My intention for that day is every single interaction and every conversation I have with myself is in regards to forgiveness. Living intentionally is having that interaction and that conversation with every single person you meet in our community. What does forgiveness feel like to the people that you're engaging with? What does it sound like in your voice and what does it look like? So, whatever your intention is, you give it to yourself. Once you have it and you possess it, it's easy to give to somebody else. But you can't give anything you don't possess. We reap what we sow. We're reaping right now the seeds that we planted earlier this year and last year and the last decade of our life. So, the seeds that we began to plant today of living intentionally, we're going to be able to grow and manifest. So, I know you're up in this beautiful area, right? There's a lot of corn, right?
There's a lot of corn. A lot of corn.
The only reason it's there is because they planted those seeds.
True.
That's it, right? There's some nurturing, there's some water, some things that go along that. But if you never plant the seeds of forgiveness, if you never plant the seeds of courage, of acceptance, they will never grow. They're not going to manifest in your life. So you really have to be intentional and have those interactions and those conversations with yourself. You're in these cornfields and they're nurturing, well, pretty much probably a lot of animals, right? But say they nurture our community at some level at some point. Well, that's what happens. So begin to imagine the impact if every single person that we interacted with and we engaged with, that we offered them love, our acceptance, our respect, our empathy, our understanding. The list goes on and on of all the positive attributes. If we possess it ourselves and we freely gave it to our community, what kind of community would we begin to live in?
Right.
Where we're authentic, we're real, we're genuine, we're truly vulnerable, and we're not having to hide. That's really my version of self-care. That's the core key element of it because it has transformed my life and the lives of thousands of people that I've been able to connect with over the last 9 years of doing this.
Yeah. Ah. It's such a powerful thing because the way that we measure ourselves when we use society's standards is such a harsh ruler, right?
Hmm.
So harsh. And most of us as entrepreneurs, gosh, I read this study a few weeks ago and I can't stop talking about it. It was that entrepreneurs have much higher anxiety, depression, ADHD, much higher rates than normal folks. Folks who have, who don't have an entrepreneurship gig going on,
Hmm.
and that the levels of suicide are higher as well.
Oh, I believe
And
that.
oh, yeah, because we're all trying to pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps. Also, if you can ever tell me actually how to do that, I'd
You
be
can't.
happy to learn because
I
I
don't know
don't think
whoever came up with that idea didn't know what they're talking about. Well,
because you don't pull yourself up, you're pulling your boot up.
I
You
know.
know what I mean?
Yeah, it's you're pulling yourself down. You know.
Yes.
Well, the thing is, you
Uh,
got to think about fear,
yeah.
right? And we talked about that a little bit. That the fear of being hurt, the fear of failure, right? Not trusting somebody. All these things in our past has created depression. All the stresses from the future create the anxiety, right? So that's part of this opportunity of really being mindful and being present. And the thing is, you've got to look at failure as feedback. I'm learning, I'm growing from what I would label as failure. Without the failures, we would never, ever succeed. And it's not going to be easy. It's like I'm building this labyrinth out on my property. I'm collecting all these rocks, right, to build this thing to meditate and walk in. Now, you know what? Those rocks aren't going to pick themselves up and move themselves. You know who has to pick up those rocks? I do. Is that fun? Not really. It's not enjoyable. But if I want to create this meditation garden where I and the community can walk around and enjoy it, somebody's got to pick up the rocks because they're not going to pick up themselves. So, as entrepreneurs or anybody listening on this, there's things every single day of your life that you have to do that you don't want to do in order to do the things that you want to do. You have to focus on your dreams, your visions, and your goals and not your excuses. Those rocks are not going to pick themselves up and roll along and put themselves where they need to go. I have to do that. Now, we all have rocks in our life that are heavy, that are awkward, that are annoying, that are dirty. They got, bugs underneath them, sometimes snakes, sometimes mice, right? Things from this earth that we don't really enjoy, we don't want to engage in. But that's part of life. I mean, that's how we grow, that's how we learn. If we haven't done the work ourselves and it was just handed to us, we don't understand it and we don't value it.
Mhm.
We have to fail. But part of this is we're in a society that we don't ask for help anymore. And I'm not afraid to ask for help. And I think that's when we begin to give up hope because we feel like we're a failure and we don't feel like we're going to succeed, right? And so many times that life of bliss, right? And this is what this whole thing is about for me, is you finding your bliss, that every single person out there truly finds and lives their blissful life each and every day. It's normally right around the corner. It's within your reach, right? But you got to keep on going. You can't stop. You can't give up on your dreams, your visions, and your goals. You have to forge forward. And I say that's one of the difference between a warrior and a soldier. We all have those. Soldiers follow orders. Somebody at the top told them what to do, and it all goes down. Well, a warrior forges their own path. They choose their own destiny, right? And it's normally a path that hasn't been chosen before. It's their own path. Your gifts, your talents are unique. What you're doing is completely, totally different than me. There's probably some similarities, but you're reaching people that I could never reach. Hence why I love leading yoga teacher trainings, because I've got a group of people that are going to reach and impact people that I never do. And a lot of them, it's not about yoga teacher training and teaching yoga. They're still realtors or they're still bankers. But you know what? They're mindful, they're present, they're emotionally regulated. They have all these benefits of what they've learned going through these sessions that have made them a better human being. So the training isn't really about teaching a yoga class. Yeah, they know how to do it. They know what to do and what not to do because I go through that. But it's really allowing them to become the best version of themselves and find their bliss, whatever they're doing for a living.
Yeah. Uh, well, normally, Carrie, I have a set of questions that
Oh,
I
okay, go ahead and ask.
build as someone is talking, but I'm wrapped with fascinations, and I've forgotten the questions. So, we'll get through this, though. I promise.
Okay.
Yeah, so many of us, just in entrepreneurship, it's that dream.
It
It's that
is.
dream of being able to transform things by what we know and the the things that we do, and people close their doors every day,
Mhm.
for a number of reasons. But I know that if we, as a community, could pick up better self care routines and be consistent, not nearly as many people would be closing their doors.
Well, you're correct. So the signs of lack of self-care, lethargy, burnout, exhaustion, crankiness, tiredness, all you think of all these negative things and traits that most of us possess throughout the day, it's because we're not taking care of ourselves. We haven't made ourselves a priority. And it's a challenge because we're lost in this maze of consumerism, right? We're on Netflix or Hulu, or we're like, oh, I've got to buy this thing at Amazon, right? And your mind is so distracted with everything and anything that's not really serving you. And that's why it's so valid. If you think about living intentionally and being mindful and being mindful and being present with your family, your friends, your food, your finances, like maybe just those four things. How can I be present and be in the moment with what I'm eating? Thinking about the journey of my food. Where did this food come from? How does it make me feel after I eat it? Do I feel like crap? If I go to McDonald's over here and I get a Burger King or a Big Mac and a fry and a milkshake, I'm not getting any nutrients. Getting zero nutrients probably. I don't know what it is, but it's probably not good. And an hour from now, I'm going to be hungry. I go back through the drive-through and I get me another Big Mac fries and milkshake. Well, what have I done with my resources and my times? Be mindful with the journey of your food and how it makes you feel. Be mindful and present with your family, your friends, and be mindful with your finances of where you're spending your money. That it really is bringing you joy, not just the superficial, like instant gratification, but truly longevity, you know?
Yeah, I know a lot of us, have, and I certainly have, just a spending thing. I have it with software. A lot of other people have it with other things, but yeah, is it stuff that I'm really using, and what's the, be just taking a second to go deeper than that deep,
Mhm.
with my thoughts, and to really realize that, everything matters. It really
Well, I'll
does.
say this too, since you don't have your questions handy. One thing that I encourage everybody to do is develop a mission statement, because when you begin to live intentionally, it serves your mission statement each and every day. So if we go back to forgiveness, how can forgiveness serve your mission statement today? Or courage? How can that facilitate, right? So, your intention, I say, drives the scope of any mission. And of course, that's a lot of because my military background, because we had specific missions that we were targeting and what we were doing, right? So our intention of this mission would maybe be for reconnaissance or signal analysis or whatever it may be. Okay. That's the same thing with you in your life. What is your ultimate intention? Is it consumerism? It's probably really to be happy. It's probably really to be connected. It's probably really to be loved. It's probably really to be accepted, right? So when you develop your mission statement, your intention drives the scope of that, and it can facilitate this. And then I'll say one other thing, and then you can ask me whatever you want. Most of us growing up, there was something that was lacking. Our parents didn't give us, right? Maybe they avoided you, maybe they neglected you, maybe they abused you, maybe they defiled you. List goes on. The number one thing I hear from people is trust. They didn't feel like they can trust their parents. Okay. So there's something that your parents did not give you growing up that you're looking for in each and every single relationship, personally and professionally. So let's go back to a couple of things here. So, like, Say your parents avoided you and they neglected you. Probably what you're looking for is acceptance, maybe love, and trust. The thing is, when you begin to give that thing that you're looking for in every relationship to yourself, and you live that intentionally, and you plant those seeds of love, of acceptance, of trust within yourself, you don't have to go look for it anywhere else. You've nurtured yourself. You've taken care of yourself. Because how many times have we probably perverted a relationship that we didn't have to, or became controlling or narcissistic because we weren't getting what we wanted in that relationship? And we started manipulating people. So, one of the biggest things that we need to do is see what we're looking for. What traits, what qualities are you looking for in every single relationship, personally and professionally? And I can guarantee you it's probably something you did not get from childhood. Once you analyze that, realize that, dissect it, right? And provide it to yourself, it will transform your life. Because then you begin to feel whole, you begin to feel complete, you begin to feel empowered. Because you're not looking for it anywhere else. You've given it to yourself. And if you give it to me, if I'm looking for trust and you give it to me, then it's a bonus. Then we become more connected, right? If I'm looking for acceptance and you accept me for who I am and you're not judging me without social comparisons, that's another thing. Another thing on this journey in self-care is you have to have acceptance for who you are. You have to love yourself for who you are without social comparisons of who you were in the past, who you might be, or social comparisons of anybody else. And that's why social media is so insidious. Because
Mm.
I can tell you for a fact, there's so many people on social media that they look like they're married. They're not even living together, but the photos are them and their kids. So they're separated. But everybody on social media thinks that their family's great and everything's amazing. And I know behind the scenes how horrible their life is.
Yeah.
But what you see on social media and the news, and I learned this back in the military, it's fake. The majority of what you're watching is an agenda of what they want you to see. And they want you to believe, and it's not even valid. It's not even true. And that's the same thing with our life. Think about how many lies you've been telling yourself your whole life about your limiting beliefs, of your insecurities. Oh, I'm fat, I'm ugly, I'm this, I'm that, I'm that, whatever. Because somebody told you that at some point, you latched onto it. And if you've told yourself a lie long enough, you begin to believe it. Well,
Right.
the media does the same thing. And I want you to think, is there any validity in that? Is that really, really true? Have you just told yourself for so long these negative concepts that you believe them? I could talk for hours. You obviously see this.
Yes. I'm smelling what you're cooking, Carrie. Well, let me ask let me ask the one question that everybody who's listening is probably wondering. How does one get a hold of you, Carrie?
Livebliss.org.
Yeah.
LIVEBLISS.org. It's the easiest way.
Okay. Beautiful.
Live Bliss. So I've
Live.
got a nonprofit, and the funds generated for that give back to the community. So we host, events and retreats. I call it Finding Bliss and Warrior Weekends. So veterans and essential personnel can find hope again, can find freedom, that can find themselves. And so that we're back onto this path of being intentional and being in the moment and finding who we were.
Yeah. Livebliss.org.
That's it.
Everybody, if you want to, you want to talk to Carrie, I know Carrie's on YouTube as well.
Mhm.
And it's really time. It's way past time, but the best time to plant a seed to make a tree was 20 years ago, and the next best time is right now.
That's right.
Uh, so don't worry if you're late to the game, because there's always an opportunity to treat yourself better.
That's right.
And business isn't business. Business isn't all about a bottom line.
Mm-mm.
Uh, Sometimes you do things that directly affect your bottom line that look indirect on the surface. But let me tell you, self care is a saver of businesses. Just
Mhm.
like it saved Carrie's life, it saved mine a couple of times too. So use this opportunity that you have before you. Get hold of Carrie. and have a chat about some of these things. Uh, any final pearls of wisdom, my friend?
Oh, well, I really hope that people have the opportunity to live intentionally and find their blissful life. That's a dream, that we have this ripple effect and we really begin to transform our community, and that we get reconnected to who we need to be, who we were at some point, and we just let go of all these things, of all these distractions, of all these things that are just bringing us, tearing us apart mentally, physically, and spiritually, so that we all don't end up bankrupt to where I was 10 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. Perfect way to end. Everybody, livebliss.org. And we'll be back next week. Same bot time, same bot channel, talking about the quest for epic engagement. This was a self-care redirect.
Yeah.
Uh, this was, an awesome opportunity to have somebody talk who has lived some things
Hmm.
and to teach us a little bit about what might put us on a better track if you happen to be not be on a great one. And that's all we have for this week. Join us again next week. And hey, if you have some time, come check us out at the Come Right In. The Come Right In, we always have a beverage for you, and we always have an ear. So, thanks for joining us, and we will see you all next time.